The movers and the shakers, number one, never let somebody censor you.
I am a native of Gabon.
Go back to the Holy Quran for solutions. Now the Quran bin Shah's
and you know Abdul Nasser Imam Mahmoud Al-Haji Jibril Imam Mustasha.
Look at your beauty beyond your physical appearance.
Why not join me, Abdul-Jalil Naabeli, the son of Musa Kumo, as my guests and I throw you to life-changing stories. Mashallah, what more shall I say than to say Alhamdulillah for another day? And trust me, today is going to be another great interview. This is my Northern Achiever on Sagani TV. I am Abdul-Jalil Naabeli. Today we are in Accra to take one of the greatest achievers of the North. Let's get together around our TV sets with friends and families to learn from, the life experiences of one of the greatest that we have had around the North. Trust me, today my opinion on my Northern Achiever is going to just encourage my fellow youth. Sometimes you go to some of these achievers' homes and you can't but to strive to be somebody, because they have really done a lot for themselves and for the society at large. And so, you see, we don't bring my Northern Achiever just for them to come and sit down and talk about their lives for nothing. They are not here to brag, and it is not, nobody should ever think that my Northern Achiever is a platform where we call people to come and brag about who they are. No, we call them to come and talk about who they are, how they started, and where they are now. How did they even get to where they are? Did they get to where they are through scamming, cyber fraud, and others? Or they did all of these things through hard work? And so I would encourage every youth to hook onto their TV sets and call people who are not available, because today is going to be super. And so as well, I could be Sagani TV, my Northern Achiever. Unfortunately, it's a so I can't dagban you do to put your dagban. The same as to ama the name my la am fan share them between the BB new Kuruba the Yawazo. To the tunnel boom the same as the Jandi, Yamum the same as the Ramana. Inshallah, I'm fine. Yella Beshadem Belly. Kayan Jilly. Tiangum to Fokom Kakanati, Labna Inshallah. Things on to Jima Zang. We're just going to go for a very quick commercial break. We'll be back shortly after I introduce my guest and we kick the ball rolling. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. We're back shortly. Thank you so much for staying on with me on my Northern Achiever on Sagani TV. Tonight, I have another great personality, like I said before, a politician, and from a royal home. I'm just learning about that. And so we'll have to talk a lot more about some of these things. Today with me is none other than the Honorable Moses Asaga, a former MP and the former, Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Authority, if I can put it that way. Good evening, sir. And welcome to the show.
Good evening, and thank you for making it.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, because of the way you are, I don't think even one session would have been good, okay for us, because to talk about you in just an hour, it's going to be very difficult, but we'll try and squeeze it to see if we can talk about you in an hour.
Okay.
And so we are going straight to knowing who you really are, because we would love to know the whole Ghana. In fact, some parts of the world actually I've heard about the name Moses Asaga. So who is Moses Asaga?
Well, Moses Asaga is a Frafra and a Nabdam, and my hometown is Nangodi, in the Upper East region. It's on the road to Boku. But in terms of breeding, I would say that I was bred in Dagbon. Specifically, we lived in Kambili. Okay, so I went to Kambili Primary School with lawyer SY. They were all my mates. And then by then Sule Garba, when we had a lot of Yoruba influence. So we're all in Kambili. Then I moved to Kamina Barracks Middle School. And from there to Ghana School. But because you want people to know who we are, when I was in Kambili, we really lived with the tradition a lot. And my auntie used to brew pito. So a lot of Dagbandaba used to come there to drink pito with my father. I can remember people like Lugna of Kambile. He used to come. Gunu of Kambile used to come. And my father's nickname was Sagani.
Sagani, as in rainbow.
Yes, and I didn't know the meaning of Sagani until after your interview of Dr. Ibrahim. I called him and I said, what's the meaning of Sagani? Because my father's nickname in Kambili was Sagani. They told me it is rainbow.
Wow.
So my name Asaga is corrupted. It's supposed to be Sa, which means rain. So my father was Asa, but because they went to work as laborers, you know, at the University of Ghana and also in Tamale, the white man or the Kambonga who was writing his name just wrote Asaga.
And that stayed.
And that stayed. But we are happy it stayed.
Because it has become a unique name.
Yeah, unique name. So you don't get many frafres having the name Asaga like the way we have Atanga, Atia, you know, you don't have it that way. That is how it has come. But we came from humble homes. I told you the Kambili experience. I used to walk and then we go to Dungu, you know.
You walk from Kambili all the way to Dungu?
Yes.
To do what?
Well, we go to Jisonaile, we go to, you name it, even we walk to...
Like as in your peers, you just...
Yeah, we just walk. But again, your auntie will send you that some farmer has some Nule. So Chami Antiji Nule mana. So we go and then we carry it. But when I was getting to Form 2, things became difficult for me economically. So I decided to leave Kambili and to go and stay with my uncle at Sakasaka. So I was very close to Sakasaka Primary School by the stadium in those days.
That was which year?
This we are talking about around 69, 70s. So I decided that, look, the best way to keep my economy moving and to be able to support my education, I decided to sell newspapers. So I was a vendor of newspapers. So anytime I close from Kamina, immediately I arrive. By then the STC buses would arrive around 3 o'clock, 4 p.m. Immediately I jump down from the vehicle. I go and pick my newspapers and then I start going to the ministries, you know, to go and sell my papers. So you sell your papers from 5, 6. Then because workers would close 5, 6 and be in the drinking bars, it means I have to continue to be with them and then sell till about 9 p.m. Then I come back to Rivoli and buy my shinkafa, eat, walk home to, now I moved to Salamba. Then from 10 or 11, that's when I will start doing my homework given to me by my teachers, you know. And again, because of poverty, I didn't look very kempt in school. Because sometimes when my dress is torn, they have to sew it
with needle.
With needle. Or sometimes you go and you didn't iron your dress. And then I like going to the bush to look for tama, you know, with my friends. So my teachers thought that, oh, this was a wayward child. But they didn't know the
hardship that you were going through.
But my prayers was, let me prove everybody when the common entrance results come. And when it came in my school, I was top 3. Then I went to Ghana school.
The greatest school ever.
Well, yes. Even though the Tamaskans would not agree.
They must agree with that.
Yes.
But it's getting interesting for me because you've spoken about the way you would do all your rounds just to make some money from newspapers, and you come home at about 9 p.m. And yet you were able to be one of the top 3. How were you able to study after school?
Yes, it was because of studies that I came to stay at Salamba with my uncle. Because when we were in Kambili, we could only afford 1 bongas. That is the milk tin. Then they'll put a thread on it. And that one would give you a lot of carbon monoxide. The next day, your nose is black. Oh. But my uncle, he could have...
electricity?
No, not electricity. Just lantern. And then we use those ones. So that was the motivation of going to stay at Salamba with my uncle. So, of course, the purpose was to pass my exams. And that is why I had to concentrate and study.
I'm just looking at the time management.
Oh, yes.
You do all this roaming. When you are back home, you are likely to be very tired.
Yeah, but you still have to, you know. So that those are some of the issues we are saying that the youth today should be able to learn and to know that you have to work overtime. You know, if you don't work overtime,
you will not be able to get somewhere.
Yes.
But another interesting question I would love to, ask is, during these periods, these were hard times for you as a young boy growing up. Did you ever sit down to think that someday I would live somewhere like in the capital and become a very wealthy man? Like, did you ever think of that?
Well, I was always looking at academic success, but I didn't know what wealth meant. But I really understood academic success, and that once you are a professional, you live a good life, you'll be able to support your parents and then your family. So that was my limit.
Wow. So you got into Ghana school in which year?
Yeah, I think we got into Ghana school 1971, 72. Those days, that's the way they called the academic year. And my direct classmate was Dr. Yakubu Alasan, and then former President John Oloma. So that's the year that we went in. But immediately I went into Ghana school. I think I just felt I was going to be a science student.
Okay.
You know, so I studied a lot of science subjects up to O levels. Then when we finished the O levels, Alhaji B.F. Sheni, may his soul rest in peace, he was the headmaster of Ghana school. So most of us, including Dr. Mills and a lot of us, Ghana school sixth form didn't exist. So we all chose sixth forms outside Ghana school. So I particularly chose Opukuwari. You know, Dr. Mills chose St. Augustine, Dr. Abla Yakubu, who is now a top professor in Switzerland. We used to call him Big Bass. He also chose Opukuwari, blah, 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 blah. But when the results came and we did very well, I went to Opukuwari and my name was not there. And I'm like, how? Then I rushed to Ghana school on the notice board and I saw a list, new sixth formers, which means B.F. Sheni had worked so hard
to start
sixth form. So he just chose all his brilliant students and brought them back to start the sixth form. And that's how all of us, including former President John Mahama and the rest,
were able to stay back in Ghana school.
Yeah. So I stayed in Ghana school for 7 years.
Thank God.
But not only that, when we were in university, I was in University of Science and Technology with Dr. Ibrahim Abukari. At that time, that was the only institution in Ghana that was doing semester system.
Okay.
Every institution was doing the term system. So 3 terms. But we were doing semester system. So anytime we were on holidays, all schools were in school. So Alhaji B.F. Sheni took advantage of that and brought us to still teach in the school. So I remember I taught chemistry for O-level students.
Who are some of the students that you taught? Any notable ones?
Wow. Yes. There was one guy called Mohammed Isaka.
Okay.
He is now a PhD petroleum engineer.
Wow.
Then there are Dr. Abukari? There's another doctor at 37, also Dagbon. And there were a few others. If you had told me, I would have prepared my mind, you know. So I taught them chemistry. And that year, as a record, nobody failed in chemistry, including the art students who didn't like chemistry.
What are some of the fond memories that you had back there in Ghana school with friends, teachers, studies, academics, and every other thing? Some of the fond memories.
Oh, the fond memories, of course, because I was living in in Tamale town. In those days, we had James Brown as a musician and a few others. So I was known as Fombia. So when we go and there's playing during records, I would already come out to the floor wearing my jeans and then a canvas shoe and be dancing boogaloo. So those were really fun time, and they were calling me Santana because that cultural revolution every time in the afternoon, you know. So I was used to town life. Okay, but some people will call it you know, but that was some of the fun memories. Wow. The other fun memories was the fact that Ganaso was a very good sporting school, and anytime we were having sports, in those days it was the whole north. We didn't, and then there were a few schools, you know, so the top four was Tamale Secondary, Navasco, Ganasco, and Boko Secondary School, followed by Laura Secondary School. Then it came on Bisco, then Yendi Secondary, and the rest. So we used to have the sports as the whole of the north. It wasn't like northern region, upper east, or upper west. So they were real good competitors, and Ganasco was really, really, really very, very good.
What sport were you engaged in?
Yeah, before I come to that, we had people like Tana Bass, we had people like Babyface. They were 400 meters, 100 meters, and a senior called Bayensi, and even there was another senior called Atanga. All these people could really give Tamasco 100 meters runners.
Run for their money.
Yes, but I did some bit of cross country. And then I represented Ganasco at Boku Secondary School and at Navrungo. But I wasn't the top one, but in Ganasco I was top. So those were some of the fun memories. But of course, you also talk of Biyarlem. Whilst in school, we ran to the bush and get our usual tama and then the grapes. Then when we go to the school farm, you know, most of us from Upper East, Frafres and the Gatis, we like raw granules. So when we are harvesting for the school, we're also putting a lot into our packets, you know, thinking that the teacher didn't see it. But I'm sure he saw it because our packets would be bulgy. So I also enjoyed working in the in the school farm. But academically, there was something that happened, and I'm so happy about Ganasco. Most of our seniors went to Tamasco, and some of them qualified to the medical school, etc. You know, one is like Dulana, you know, he's doctor. I don't know if he has retired. Then the dentist specialist, Abla, he's also from there. So we also decided to aspire, and our year O levels, to be frank, we equalized Tamasco in terms of grades, in terms of everything. I mean, they were shocked. And then our O levels, even though we're a new sixth form, the whole from Brong-Ahafo region to Upper East, all the schools, only Ganasco managed to get a student to go and read medicine. Wow. Yes. So we are proud of.
As for Ganasco, a whole lot of
a whole lot of things.
A whole lot of things, because you know, Senior President John Mahama, we'll come and talk about it and other stuff. But I want to go for a very quick commercial break. My producers are signaling me for that. And right after that commercial break, there's a question I asked former President Mahama, and I would love to ask Honorable Moses Asaga too, because today there are students in Ghana Senior High School who are enjoying a lot of facilities, and they think that the whole world is against them because of one of few challenges. What challenges were there in Ghana school, and how were they able to manage to even sail through to making it to where they are today? And you know, a lot more to come after this commercial break. Don't go away, back shortly. You are watching My Northern Achiever on Sagani TV. I am Abdul-Jalil Naabeli, Today I have with me the Honorable Moses Asaga, and we are going to come to talk a bit about your family. But before then, let's finish with the Ganasco issue. Then we come to family before we even go to tertiary. Now, like I said before the break, you know, you were in the Ganasco at a time, I believe the school was so deprived. Today there are so many facilities there, but students still think that the world is against them because of one of few challenges that they face. You know, what was the motivation for you? What challenges were there? And what was the motivation for you? And how did you surpass these challenges to making it to where you are today?
Well, I think that Ganasco was a real model school. At the time that we went to that school, we had the right infrastructure in terms of dormitories, sports facilities, and classroom blocks. So, and then our masters were also there. I remember we even had some Indian masters. We also had a few Peace Corps from the US who came to teach in Ganasco. So during our time, we had all this. The dining hall meals were also very good. But one of the biggest problems in Ganasco, which probably even have not been solved, was water crisis. So our time, we had to sometimes go to Vitim Dam to go and then fetch water, you know. But so for me at that time, that was the biggest challenge that we ever had.
But definitely that didn't deter you.
No, it didn't deter us. And maybe sometime when we are chatting, you know, I remember when we were in sixth form, the great player Abedi Pele was in Form 1. You know, and Sule Garba, Dr. Sule Garba late, myself, John Mahama, and the rest. And when I tell people that Abedi used to fetch water for us, because as a sixth former, is the Form 1 boys that will be fetching the water for us to bath and the rest. So I always mention this as part of the fun. And he became one of the greatest footballers, you know, and I'm very happy that B.A. Fusheni identified this his talent, you know, because what B.A. said was, and that's why Ganasco had very, very good sports people, including people like Osgood, who came from Yende Secondary to play for RTU.
And Abedi's brother
Kwame and the rest. And then Seaman, who was a 100-meter runner. What B.A. Fusheni's philosophy was, how come that the Southerners, the Cambonses, we always hear that the best Olympic 100-meter runner for Ghana came from the South and attended school in the South and went to the US. What was the secret about it? So B.A. said, no, there is something that we, the Northerners, are not doing right. And what was it? If you get a student who gets, in those days, Division 2, but he's a sports person, you should consider it to be equivalent to Division 1. Because maybe if he
concentrated a lot more on
he may become that. So BA used that to be able to encourage his students, you know, to move on. And most of them did very well, even academically, to go to the universities. And I think that BA is the soul, he and Alaji, former Vice President, Aliu Mahama and Badamoshi, I think they did very well for RTU. If for nothing, they brought RTU, and RTU was on the top of the Premier League in Ghana. And I think we, the current Northerners, I think we have failed the North because we've not been able to support RTU to become the RTU of the 1980s.
We'll come to talk about that at the tail of the interview, because I'm happy that you know that we have failed the North. And if you say we have, I believe you have failed the North more in that sector.
Our contemporaries.
Indeed.
Yes.
And but let's come to talking about your family, because I love talking about family values, because as a young father, you know, there are lessons I draw from same. What kind of family do you come from? What kind of upbringing did you get from your parents growing up as a child?
Okay, I think that the family was a unit family, and my father, as I said, was a government worker, maybe at the liberal level, caretaker level. Okay, my mother was very industrious. She would go and pick tama in the morning for share nut. And then she was also selling kenke. Okay, so because of the way my mother was industrious, most of us also took to her style. That look, you just don't have to just be there and say, I have a mother, I have a father. So I would say that we learned to be hardworking. That's the first thing. Then in our humility, we are also a happy family. So we really gelled. Our family were four, and we were always together, cracking jokes, helping one another academically. So if you are the senior child, you must make sure that you encourage your junior siblings. And that was the method that we used in our family.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I love some of this. So what were some of the chores that you did? Like,
Yes,
did you have to weed kaba?
Yes,
you know?
yes. So coming to that one, we now moved to Yeji, where my father was now caretaker of government guest house by the riverside. Because in those days we were using pantu. We were not using kintampo and so most of the civil servants, when they miss the pantu, they have to sleep at the guest house. So my father was multilingual, so to speak, and therefore, even though he was a semi-illiterate, they made him the caretaker of the guest house, the government guest house. So that is where we then stayed, and then of course a bit of prosperity came in. So as the daily chores, anytime I come from Ganasco on holiday, I'll rest one day, and the next day I'm in the cassava farm for my father and then my mother. When I finish doing this, then I go for, as you said, maybe kaba, but the Ashantis will call it pa for we the Northerners. So I'll go and do pa, can farm about an acre of somebody's cassava farm within a week. Wow. Oh yes. And the grass could be as tall as this, but I'm under it.
You did all of this?
I did all of this with my brother, the current paramount chief of Naabeli. And we did it with happiness. It's not like we did it with grudge. Yeah, we did it with happiness. Forced. So, yes. And I remember during Rawlings' time, around 82, 83, things were very, very difficult. To the extent that if you want to buy kenke, you go and queue and buy just the raw kenke in the fermented form and bring it to your house to then cook. Because if you want it to be cooked, you will never get the kenke. This was how difficult it was when Rawlings came in and he tried. So within that period, we too had to work very hard for our family to have food. So we used to go and do pa in the cassava farm. And anytime we go to do the pa, at least they'll give us konkonte and, some soup or pepper to eat for lunch. And we're grateful. But there was a very striking issue. One day, once we were doing the pa, and me and my brother will always speak English, the chief. So I went to toilet in the bush, and the owner of the pa came and said, "Abba, why is the Yipola speaking English?" Because he took us for northern, Frafres, the Gombes, they go to Brong Ahafo region to farm pa and the rest. So we are supposed to be illiterate. So my brother told them, do you know this, my brother? He just qualified for university. So from next month, he's going to university. And I'm in Form 3, Form 4, St. Charles Secondary School in Tambali. This Adam man or Aigbe man was shell-shocked. Wow. He said, "What? And you people are farming for me? My son is only in middle school." And he says, he's a Karachi. And that's why I've come to hire you. not knowing you are even higher than
him.
He was so impressed that he told us, anytime we are going home, we should uproot as much cassava as we can and take home every single day that we are going home.
Wow.
And then he changed our food.
Wow.
Now we had palm nut soup with big fish and the rest. So that was also, as you said, we did all this work to be able to supplement.
Yeah.
And so now our house had a lot of cassava, a lot of maize. So we didn't suffer like other households during this difficult period that President Rawlings was in.
There is that aspect about you that not many people do know. Indeed, I didn't also know about it until when we spoke informally before this interview started. You are a royal, you know. How are you linked to the royal family, and which royal home do you come from?
Okay. Yeah, so in Nangodi chieftaincy is one of the oldest chieftaincies in the north, but people may not know. And it can be comparable to Kumbungna, Tolona, you name it, you know. Yes. And so about maybe 100 years ago, that they started documenting the Nangodi chieftaincy. So we are from the Yelzoya family, and then we have the Azure family. These are the two major ones, but there are other minor ones.
That ascend the skins.
That ascend the skin. And our great-grandfather, Yelzoya, maybe ascended the skin like 70 years ago. And we never got back to the skin. And the Azure family, they were getting the skin in a succession up to maybe 8 times.
Wow.
So in 2010, when I was becoming Minister for Labor, then it was time for us to go for another contest. And we normally go to Nairi. In Mampurugu land. Yeah.
Precise.
So it's a big scheme, you know, in the Bewa clan.
Yes, because if the Nairi himself is the one installing you as the chief, it means a lot.
Yes, it means a lot.
It's a paramountcy on its own.
Yes, on its own. So my father always went for the chieftaincy, but because he was poor, anytime he went, well, he wouldn't get it, because chieftaincy too, resources are important. They want you to have an elegant palace. You know, it's not like Yana where you inherit the palace.
And in trying to get it, you also have to do some politicking around.
Yeah, you know, so he always went, but we are happy for him. If he had not gone for our names to be in the regional House of Chiefs, our gate could have been closed. Yes, you know, so when I became an MP in 1996 and was MP for Nabdam for 16 years, I was Deputy Finance Minister along the line. I was a Minister for Labor. So I thought that, no, my family too, we need to be recognized. So this time when they were going for the chieftaincy, I really descended in Nalerigu. Yes, and I stayed for 2 weeks.
Doing the lobbying and
trying to push that. Look, you can't have several children and then only one son or one woman's children are always the Nangodi chief. Then the other one is left. That was my message to Nairi. And I kept on hammering on it. You know, that no, because you know. So finally, but he also wanted quality. Yes, he wanted quality. So we presented 2 candidates. Somebody who is a traditional person with clout at the village, but not educated. Then my brother, who is educated, veterinary. And
the same brother you used to farm with?
Farm with, So this is the way we placed it. Then the other family placed almost about 7 people, because you know, everybody will go and tie the thing.
Yes, and they have been there for so long to an extent that almost all of them are qualified.
Yeah, all are qualified from different fathers, you know. So Nigeria, when you go to Nigeria to be given the scheme, Nigeria takes only 3 days.
Wow.
But our time, it took 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because the tension was big. Sometimes, if today he's to end scheme, he'll come and say, no, and then we'll all bow down and run out to keep on lobbying. And the lobbying also, soothsaying was important. Yeah, you have to go.
It's part of the tradition.
It's part of the tradition. And Nigeria will tell us that, oh, then I'll say, okay, we shall see. You know.
But this is
so
an interesting story.
So he became the paramount chief.
Yes, but
and he just celebrated his 10th anniversary.
Before we continue from there, I would love us to look at the kind of tension that was brewing. How were you able to manage it? Because I'm sure if you hadn't managed it well, maybe it would have brought about one protracted chieftaincy dispute, and by now you would still be struggling over which family to take over. How were you able to manage it with the help of the Nigerian to be able to get the chieftaincy, title without any skirmishes?
There was a lot of violence.
Wow.
Yes, and even my Nizam patrol, somebody I know very well from the other chief's house, threw a stone at my distance.
Windscreen?
Yeah, no, the body.
The body, okay.
And the day of the enskinment, because they brought a tattoo of police from Gambaga to Nalerigo. And then the tension was so much. And somebody just came and said, oh, today we can't enskin. And I said, no, you can't say we can't enskin. We've been here for 2 weeks. Today, Nigeria must enskin. And of course, that time I was Minister for Labor, you know.
So they felt that you had an influence or...
Oh, yeah. No, people wanted to also delay because I'm sure they could see the wind blowing towards our family.
Yeah.
So if Nigeria doesn't enskin, they could go back and
renegotiate and
reassemble their arsenals, especially the African electronics, because we're all going for African electronics, so to speak.
Yeah.
I remember one of my African electronics person, he is a Malam. And he's like, let's say 15 kilometers from Nalerigo.
Okay.
And then you go there around 11 p.m. And then when you get him, he will start chanting from 11 p.m. up to 9 a.m. until Nigeria puts the smoke on the one who was to be enskinned. And that was one of the things that we engaged in. I'm saying all this for people to see the tradition.
Indeed.
Oh, yes. So there was a lot of African electronics left and right. We may not believe it, but there was also politics.
Yeah.
Oh, because the other house apparently decided to go to one political camp, and we were also, because I was MP for NDC. So mine was very obvious. So when we were enskinned, as I said, the Gambaga people came and swore that I would not go home alive.
Really?
Yes, because the other faction, they had grown in Gambaga. You know, because Nigeria enskin said, we sometimes go to stay in Mamprugo.
Yeah.
And we are like his subjects. You get it? Yes, so some of them stayed there and grew.
Raise their family there.
And then rest. So they know a lot of the Gambaga Mamprugo people. So I remember they said I wouldn't go home. So I went low lying. The midnight 1 a.m.
You went out.
I went out through the same Gambaga. When I reached Walwali, then I called the DC. I said I'm out.
Wow.
The day when Gambaga got up 6, 7 a.m. waiting for me, we're busy preparing the palace back at Nangodi.
Wow.
So it wasn't with difficulty, it was with difficulty.
Really...
But we are happy because that our gate
would have died out.
Would have died out. Yes, and
I would want us to leave that topic
Yeah.
because we've really exhausted a lot. But quickly, in 30 seconds, why did you leave, the space or the opportunity for your younger brother? Because I believe you would
Okay.
have been the most
yes.
the most senior or the eldest
Yes.
to have been qualified for that
Yes.
particular job.
Yeah. As I told you, I was MP. An MP cannot be a chief unless you
And
resign.
you didn't think it was necessary to resign as an MP?
Yes,
and
then
take
I
the
was a
chieftaincy?
minister. Okay.
Mm.
And I still thought I had better opportunities to serve the NDC.
Okay.
And so my brother just needed to accept it so that he will still keep
The gate alive.
the gate alive.
Wow.
Yes. And so we just agreed among ourselves. And I think I took the right decision.
Mm.
If I had jumped into the chieftaincy, I wouldn't have been CEO of MPA.
Indeed.
And we wouldn't have been sitting here.
Wow. I love the answer. Honorable is one great personality, and I love every bit of him. And trust me, as the interview goes on, you are also going to love a lot about this particular man. We're going for another quick commercial break. We'll come back and now go back to Ghana School. In fact, we are done with Ghana School. We'll go back to education and then to work experiences and then to politics and many more. He has his own family. And so we'll come back and talk a lot more about Honorable Moses Asaga here on My Northern Achiever. We'll be back shortly. My name is Abdul-Jalil Naabeli, and this is My Northern Achiever on Sagani TV. We are here today with Honorable Moses Asaga. And now we are going to go to talk about the rest of your education. You completed Ghana Senior High School and Ghana School, then Ghana College maybe. And then you went to which schools?
Yeah, I went to University of Science and Technology.
Mm.
I studied science, mathematics, physics, and chemistry.
Mm.
But in my final year, I specialized in industrial chemistry.
Mashallah.
Okay, so when I finished the industrial chemistry, then I was made a research assistant in the university.
Okay.
So I used the opportunity to see how I could get scholarship for further studies.
Mm.
So I got a scholarship to go to South Korea, Seoul, South Korea, to do a master's degree in petrochemicals. Then I also got concurrently another scholarship from the British Council, so to speak, to go to Aberdeen University to do a master's program. So I had 2 scholarships, and then I had to decide what to really do. One was 2 years master's, the other one was a 1-year master. So I decided to get an excuse for the one which is the 2-year master's. And then I rushed to Aberdeen University, did my master's degree, now in petroleum technology. Okay, so when I finished that one, because that one is a 1-year master's, my deference of the other one was still active.
So you went
But
back.
I had to work harder to make sure that I did the course in 9 months instead of the 12 months calendar. Okay.
Which year was that?
This was 1986, 87.
Okay.
Okay. So I rushed to Korea, South Korea, and the time I was there, they had their Olympics. The Olympics took place in 1988. So instead of continuing with sciences, I decided to switch to MBA, a master's degree in business administration. And at our time, that qualification plus your technical qualification was very, very good. And Americans were the people who really started this whole MBA. So I thought that if I add MBA, then when I come to Ghana, my fortunes will be better. So by 1990, I finished my MBA, came to Ghana, and then immediately the banks were looking for me, Ministry of Energy was looking for me, Ashanti Goldfields Corporation were looking for me. So finally I went to Ministry of Energy, worked for maybe a year, then I got a job with EcoBank, worked a year, was headhunted by GNPC, and by then Chachu Chikata was the CEO of GNPC. Then we had people like Guzitano was in charge of admin and finance. And they just looked at my CV and they felt that, look, this is someone with both petroleum background and finance background. So he could work effectively in corporate finance and then project finance. And of course, I had the banking little experience. So that's how I went to GNPC.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I was now in GNPC, then in 96, the MP for Nabdam decided that he would not go again after one term. So I was in my house in Tema when Alhaji Fudu Yahya and others sent delegations to me that I have to be
the next
MP.
in line.
And you can imagine the kind of shock you would get and the family would get. So even though I was a student
politician,
activist, and I was more left-wing and therefore NDC, I didn't think that I would leave my profession and really be an active or a mainstream politician. But when there is a call, and this was coming from Nabdam, you know, and the Nabdams knew me because as a university student, I used to go home to assist in establishing Nabdam Students Union, Nabdam whatever union. And I was humble. I never took a position, but I always worked very hard. And when I was in GNPC, I was even made a government appointee at the Assembly for Nangodi. And I used to go to Bolga to attend assembly meetings. So again, I was known. So that is how I dovetailed into politics. So I was MP for Nabdam for 16 years.
And throughout this period too, you have been minister. What ministries have you handled?
Yes. Throughout this period, I was deputy finance minister. Honorable Kwame Pepra was my boss.
That was between which period?
That was between 1997 to 2001 when we lost elections. And Honorable John Mama by then was my colleague. We were appointed at the same time. He was deputy minister for communication. Then later on, he was confirmed the substantive minister. Then we went to opposition and I held very critical positions. I was the spokesperson for finance for NDC in opposition in parliament for 6 years. Then the last 2 years, I became the spokesperson for energy, you know, and then Atamils won. But in between this, I also worked at the World Bank because I was deputy finance minister, negotiated a lot of the loans alongside with my minister. I was on the board of the economic policy management for Central Bank, Bank of Ghana. You know, I was at one point a member of the board for PURC, which is for utilities. And that one was because of my energy background. Later on, I became a board member of Ghana Commercial Bank because of my finance background. And somewhere along the line, 2010, Atamils made me to be on the board of Ghana Civil Aviation. I was the chairman, you know, but in addition, I was a member of the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa. We were 5 representing each country, and I was one of them. I actually took over the occupancy of His Excellency John Mahama. He was the one who was there, but now that he profoundly wanted to be vice, he had to step down a bit. So I was then made to feel his position, so to speak, you know. So that have been the working session. I was in charge of African Development Bank. I negotiated a number of loans. You know, I used to travel with Rawlings, and I was the spokesperson on finance, both when he was president and when he was a former president. We traveled to France. I made a speech in France for the France industrialists and their investment. It was full of whites. And Rawlings just said, go ahead, tell them everything. I got 3 standing ovations from the whites. They will get up, sit down.
Then you impress them again, they get up, you impress them again.
Yes, you know. Then he took me to Atlanta, Corporate Council for Africa. They were to give him an award as one of the best performers in turning around the economy of his country. I mean, Rawlings, especially he brought things like liberalization, then privatization, etc. So they recognized him. And he was to give the major speech that day. The whole night, me and Kwesi Ahoy, who was one time Minister for Interior, and at that time, Ghana Investment Promotion Council boss, we sat throughout the night writing the speech of President Rawlings. Come the D-Day, 10 o'clock, Rawlings goes to the podium and says he's not going to talk. And I was busy eating maybe my bread and tea. They said, I'm not going to talk. I have my capable and able young deputy minister. Look, I was shocked. They said, Moses, come here, come here, come here. Wow. Look, I got a sweat, a streak of sweat. Come in. Then I went, and you know he is big and I'm small. He held me like a student. Tell them everything. So I started ex-tempo. When I finished,
the applause alone.
Look, and the chairman of the occasion is a Nigerian in oil and gas and one of the richest African Americans. He owns a bank, he owns oil fields. He was the chairman. He said he has never seen this from an African before.
Wow.
So those are some of the things. Where do we call it? African Development Bank, the headquarters is in Abidjan. My boss made sure I was in charge of African Development Bank. And I used to go there with the former governor, Dufour. So we will represent Ghana there.
So, you know, sometimes some of these ministerial positions that you got, like a labor minister and then later NPA boss, which is not a ministry anyways. Do you usually lobby for them, or is it that you are handpicked?
Well, for each one of my positions, I was picked, and they picked me because they knew I could work hard in those areas. I had the qualification. I was committed to the party. I worked hard in parliament. So if you are looking for people to occupy certain positions, of course, I'll be there. But there was also regional balance. Okay, so this from Upper East, or he's a Northerner. So okay, we should. So for example, to be Deputy Finance Minister, it was because in the first 3 months, I tried to work hard in Parliament. I wasn't thinking of being a minister. I was on the Finance Committee. But one day, an issue came to Parliament about the sale of TV3. By then, late Salia was the Minister for Communication and Transport. And then some banks came from Malaysia and the rest. They had bought the bank, maybe taking 50% and the rest. And we had on the other side, Dr. Praku, Usafo Mafo, all the big guys in opposition. So when our minister made his presentation, they started throwing economic questions at him and the rest. So I don't know what happened. Some spirit just moved me and I got up. Fortunately for them, my thesis in finance was that area.
Wow.
So valuation of shares of companies, you know, and the value of assets of a company. So I started to rattle. When I finished, the NDC couldn't help. They carried me.
Wow. In Parliament.
In Parliament. Then we went out. Then there was a big meeting. And of course, my mentor, Chachu Chikata, was always around to cushion me. So there was this big meeting, and I don't know what happened. It was World Bank, IMF, Ministry of Finance, Bank of Ghana. I hear I was supposed to attend the meeting. When I went there, I was the youngest guy. So the Minister of Finance, Honorable Kwame Pepra, then the Speaker of Parliament, Justice Annan. Then Justice Annan just asked me about what do you want here? And I said, well, the meeting that you are attending is the meeting that
I've been asked to come.
So I went in and everything was on crude oil, finances, this, that. And I was gentle but pushed my ideas. We just came out. Rollins was like, he couldn't understand himself. Then my mentor Chachu took me out and said, next time you are doing well, but don't overdo well. You do understand?
Indeed.
Yeah. We
will start fighting you underground.
Yes. So you can see that this one was by merit.
Yeah.
Then when Atamils came, he saw that I worked in parliament. I mean, what Haruna Idrisu and the rest are doing today, Adongo, you name them, Forcing, is what I did. You know, and at that time, they have multiple people who can do the same thing. Atuforcing is there, Jinapo is there, and the rest. But my time, it was a bit tough.
Not many finance background.
Yes, and energy, you know. So you were like the one to do all the press conferences.
Kind of.
But the good thing was that I can call him JM today.
Yeah.
JM was a good communicator. So when we are about to do something, I will sit with him, tell him what I want to do, and he will put it and make a press release. And that's how we work together. You know, so it was out of hard work in opposition. And also I go on campaign. So when Atamils won, he first made me Minister for Works and Housing. Then just within 1 week or two, he withdrew me. And the accusation was that I signed ex gratia for President Kufuor, Safomafu and co when they were leaving office, and MPs. I shouldn't have signed. But I was among the three in the economic management team of the Ministry of Finance. And out of the three of us, Tobe, Governor Dufo, Tobe Afede, Governor Dufo, and myself, I was the only mainstream politician who have worked in the ministry, who have worked in parliament, who have worked with all these personalities. So I knew that their entitlement was a right entitlement. But like I told you, so immediately it just happened, people just went straight to say, we told you, Moses is
that's a bad guy.
Yeah, or a rascal. He takes decisions without consultation. But I did all the consultation. So that's how I moved from Works and Housing. And I don't think President Mills called me and said, look, Moses, your removal was political, but I know how much work you have done. Take it easy. Then in 2011, he then brought me to Ministry of Labor. You know, so it's all through hard work.
Wow.
Yeah, all is through hard work.
So now, what I would want to ask now is, what has been your life principles growing up? Maybe 2, 3 of these principles that you have taken as an individual that has really worked for you to get into where you are.
Yeah, I think the first thing is humility. Then the second is you must work very hard. And the third is I'm a North now, and I'll fight for the North.
Wow.
Yes.
I love the third one. Yeah. Today, not many people have that in mind. Yeah. But generally, why were you in politics? How did you influence, the lives of people back at home?
Yes, and I'm still doing it. When I was an MP, I took one core area. I didn't spread myself thin. I just said all my common fund and my resources should go into education.
Wow.
So the NABDAM students who were to go to second cycle and tertiary, I spent all my time, my money, everything on deprived students. And my house back in Bolga or NABDAM, when I go home, you think it's a market. Students from all over would come, and then I'll just have my list. I can't support but if you are going to big boss and they say you should pay 600, at least if I give you 300 or 250 or 400, at least I've reduced the burden.
Sure.
So your father too can get a goat or some guinea fowl. This is the level at which I was dealing with, talking of goods and the rest. And some of my opponents will say that, oh, you know, and I gave it across board. Whether your father was MPP, your mother is NDC, it didn't matter. Just come and say, I've qualified, I'm poor, and I'll help.
Wow.
Yes, yes. So that was my focus, and I did that very well.
How did you leave your seat? Did the seat leave you or you left the seat?
I would say the seat left me.
What happened?
Yes. I told you about the Nigeria thing. So when I came back, there was this propaganda that you are the MP, you are the minister, and now your house is the paramount chief. You can't be all the three. So that was now the campaign. Then my strongest hold, or one of my strongest hold, was in the old chief's place.
So they felt that now that they don't have the paramountcy, they
so
should also now get an MP.
You can imagine that a place that was like 400 people, where I used to win like 350, an MPP would win 50. I got like 50.
And they now got the other way around.
So that was one of my downfalls. But when it happened, I celebrated it because my brother was now the chief. We are talking of generation. And how long could I have been an MP? That was going to be my final leg. Which
that's what you had made up your mind.
Yes, that 2016, I won't run again. But my brother is now celebrating 10 years.
Wow.
It's not more than the 4 years.
Indeed.
Yes. And my father and my ancestors are all happy.
So for you, it's just about opportunity cost.
Yes, it was, and it was the best decision I ever took. It was the best loss I had. Because when I lost, then JM put me as CEO of MPA, which was an exciting job.
Most of the times, people see politicians, especially when I come to see your mansion, you know, the first thing that comes into my mind is that he's a politician. So maybe he has stolen state funds and others. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's not always the case, because a politician is also a human being and tries to do investments, etc., etc. So that is how it comes about. And politicians also can have privileges, you know, and you can use those privileges to your advantage.
In 1 minute, look into my cameras and tell the Ghanaian youth, especially the northern youth, most especially those in politics, what we should do as youth in order to have a better country and a better future.
Well, I think the whole thing is we must study hard, we must work hard, irrespective of the role that we are playing. Even if you are sweeping, sweep it well so that you be called Chief Sweeper Award. Then for the young politicians, they should not run too fast. They should take it easy, step by step, and they'll be where we are as today.
Wow, it's very short, but quite inspiring and very deep. We'll have to do this another time, but before then, the Ghanaian economy today, you know, not too long ago, the NPP has finally gone to the IMF. EDV is still there. And, you know, what is your take on the economy in just a minute?
Yeah, in just a minute, I would say that the economy is overburdened with debt. The economy is also having macroeconomic distortions. We know all inflation, you name them, exchange rate, you name them. And in public finance, that's why we all belong to World Bank. And African Development Bank,
Yeah.
and IMF. We are shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
So normally when economies run into trouble, you have to do a bailout. And I remember when I was doing my MPhil in financial economics at Durham University, I also have an MPhil. My subject area was financial crisis. And for all the case studies that I looked at, when you are in financial crisis, you must go for a bailout.
Okay.
And I advised them maybe 6 months ago, you listened to me, and I told the Minister of Finance that, look, he must put pride aside and go for a bailout. But they told me they won't go for a bailout. So today, I think I'm celebrating. That's why now I have my newspaper.
You are very close to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Yes.
Is he coming for 2024 presidential elections?
Even if he doesn't want to come, we'll push him to come.
So what position are you looking for if he eventually becomes the next president in 2025?
For me, there are many positions, but I think that at my age and everything, maybe being on some very strong boards that would help him would be very important. And I'm looking at GNPC because our crude oil and our crude assets have not been well managed by this particular government. Our exploration activities have slowed down, and it is only through active exploration that you can get more crude oil. Our relationship with the international oil companies have been deepened with corruption and political interference. They don't like that. So, for example, ExxonMobil had a very good block, deep water. They had the technology, but after 6 months, they folded and left. And all was because of political interference. Aker came, the Norwegians, there was the fanfare, they didn't manage it well. They got people to be employed in Aker who really don't even understand oil and gas. They were trying to share the assets. The companies that are supposed to partner with Aker in various aspects of the value chain of oil and gas production, instead of them to allow private people to do it, they brought their political cronies who didn't understand anything. So with this kind of knowledge and the challenges in GNPC and our exploration and production, I think that this would be one of the best places that John Mahama should put me.
Can the NPP break the 8?
No, they can't.
What if they?
Well, but if they can't, that is it.
I believe every other person would have wished, just like I wish, we could continue the conversation. But unfortunately, this is where time is going to allow us. So, Honorable, we say thank you very much for being on the show.
No.
I believe we will come back again when you are the CEO of the GNPC.
Yeah, no, the chairman of the
chairman
board.
of the board. The chairman of the board of GNPC in 20. I said when?
2025.
If.
Oh, no. You said when you were.
No, it should be if you.
Okay.
Well, this is where time is going to allow us today. And we thank Honorable very much. And I thank everybody out there who have really taken your time to follow us on the interview. Remember to follow me on social media at Jalil Naabeli. Facebook is Abdul-Jalil Naabeli. The video is going to be on YouTube at Motion TV online. Follow us online, and we will always have the best of interviews from the north, and that will inspire you and give you a lot of motivation. Until I come your way again next week, my name remains Abdul-Jalil Naabeli. Bye bye for now.